Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for joining me. Today we're talking about one of my favorite series of all time, Suikoden, going back to their very original game, Suikoden 1, the one that started it all. And yes, I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce the Suikoden kind of universe and what kind of conceptually makes these games Suikoden compared to something like, a Dragon Quest or a Persona game, for example. So this is going to be kind of a Suikoden 1 HD remaster review / retrospective. The footage will be coming from the HD versions, but essentially both versions of the game are the same with just a bunch of quality of life upgrades for the HD remake. So I will point out differences throughout the video depending on the version, but yes, the footage will be coming from the HD versions. Now, I honestly, before I get into this, I just have so much nostalgia for the Suikoden games. Like I must have played through these games like 10 times as a kid. I mean, I know them intimately, the characters, the music, the lore, the locales, the like myriad of tragedies. It's all just etched into my brain. And, I am just so excited to talk about this. And while the first game is short and sweet and definitely not quite as good as the games like Suikoden 2, 3, and 5, in my opinion, this game lays down all the foundations that the Suikoden games are known for and really is just a short and sweet adventure that wastes no time and doesn't waste any of your time when you play it. So anyway, let's just dive in. First, a little boring history lesson. We'll keep it brief, though. The original Suikoden launched in 1995 and 1996 in Japan and the US respectively. It actually came out for both the Saturn and the PlayStation. A lot of people forget there's a Saturn version because it was only in Japanese and was never localized into English. But yes, it came out for the Saturn and PS1, which is the version pretty much everyone would have played back then. Just a little fun fact, the Suikoden games are kind of like a brother or sister series to the Vandal Hearts games. Like Vandal Hearts 1 and 2, Suikoden 1 and 2, basically like the same launch time, both made by Konami. I don't know. It's just been in my brain, for the last 30 years. It's an interesting thing to note. And yeah, Suikoden 1, it was pretty overlooked upon release. Like looking back at some of the reviews and what people thought, it seems like people who played it enjoyed it. But the thing is, it was pre-FF7, and I think that a lot of people were comparing it. They wanted 3D, first of all, and this game didn't have the flashy PS1 3D visuals. And honestly, the visuals aren't even really as good looking as something like Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo, though, they're competent for the era. It's an early PS1 game. It looks fine. It doesn't quite have the details that something like Chrono Trigger had. But the thing is, this laid down all the foundations of Suikoden. Let's just lay it out here. The combat, there's 3 different types of combat between regular battles, major battles, and one-on-one duels. There's really emotional storytelling pertaining to more like kind of down-to-earth nation versus nation, friends versus friends, family, stuff like that. You build a headquarters. You have 108 characters to recruit, making it kind of like almost like a Pokemon-esque kind of experience. And yeah, all of this stuff kind of just coalesces and makes Suikoden what Suikoden actually is. And it's all here in the first game, just in a kind of simplified, stripped down version. I am going to start off with the themes and story, but don't worry, there will be no spoilers here. So Suikoden itself, the first game, takes place in what's called the Scarlet Moon Empire. You start off as playing the Sun, as one of the most famous generals in the land. And the Empire used to be a great empire with a great leader named Barbarossa, who was well respected, was a good leader. But however, in the last 5-10 years, based on what the characters throughout the game say, he's changed a lot. He's fallen under the influence of someone kind of evil, and the Empire has become kind of corrupted and is not doing a very good job of taking care of its citizens. So you work for this kind of corrupted empire, and things spiral from there, eventually transitioning you against them. I do not want to spoil any more than that, but needless to say, there's a pretty good transition. And honestly, the game starts off with you and your group of friends. It's kind of like a coming to age with, Ted, Cleo, and Pan. And there's a lot of kind of funny little teenage jokes in there, like Ted and the main character, like, oh my God, Lady Windy, she's so beautiful. It's a little bit weird when you first start playing it because it's tonally, it feels very immature. But the game progresses a lot from there as it introduces new characters and more powerful themes, and you're kind of swept up into this giant kind of war. And honestly, even conversations like that in the beginning, now that I'm an adult playing this rather, I do think it's a little cheesy, but I'm also like, wow, you know what? I remember when I was 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, you have me and my friend on the playground, and it's just this crazy thing to say that, a girl's beautiful or you have a crush on somebody. So these conversations kind of do happen in real life to some extent. But what I will say with the story, though, is honestly, this game has some really good themes. So one of the biggest elements of Suikoden is runes, and there's 27 true runes. These are kind of magic, and I don't know exactly why they exist, but they kind of have like a sort of Buddhist kind of sense of balancing the universe. And your main character gets one of these 27 true runes, very powerful. It's called the Soul Eater. And the way the Soul Eater becomes more strong is actually to devour the soul of those closest to you, like your friends, family, and I won't say anything about how that impacts the game. That's for you to experience if you still haven't played it, and pick up the HD remaster if you didn't. When you have this rune, it kind of creates a lot of tragedy. And, what I will say is, like, I liked everything going on. These themes are really great, like, family versus family. Is it wrong to betray your empire and join kind of like a movement against it? Or is loyalty more important than that ultimately? Is, expending lives in war even acceptable? There's a lot of interesting kind of morality issues that pop up in the game, kind of philosophical, moral, a lot of stuff like that. And it's really cool. However, that said, being the first game in the series and being so short and kind of simplistic, I think all the characters are likable. There's so many characters you will really like Matthew, Humphrey, Victor, Flick. But I will say that, these characters don't really have very deep backstories, and their character arches tend to be pretty simplistic, except for a few of the main characters. So I wouldn't say they're great characters in the sense that you're like, wow, that's a really, amazingly written character that just, stands the test of time. Like, they're more likable in this game. And a lot of the story scenes are admittedly really short. Like, they're emotional, they're well done, but they're a little bit too short to pack as much of a punch as the later games. But I want to emphasize that point. Like, you should absolutely start here because a lot of these characters do return in the later Suikoden games. And the Suikoden series is really unique in that, this world or continent or set of countries, however you want to look at it, everything rolls over. The Scarlet Moon Empire is adjacent to the empire you work within in the second game, which is adjacent to another country in the third game. And so everything's really interconnected, and that includes some of the stories. Like, many of these characters, I want to say like 40 or 50 of them, will return from Suikoden 1 to Suikoden 2. And there's really cool kind of lore that you'll never kind of figure out, but you'll be intrigued by, like, Pesmeriga and Uber. Like, what the hell's going on with these guys? Like, these guys are in Suikoden 1 and 2, and even 3 with Uber. And, like, we don't know what's going on with them. They have this rivalry. They seem to come from a different parallel. And so what I'm saying, I guess, in essence, is that Suikoden just has a sense of world building that just doesn't really exist in most other RPGs, where it's like every game is very self-contained. So it's really important to start with the first game, even if it is a little bit simplistic. Now, moving on to the combat, because Suikoden does have so many characters, I mean, you're going to recruit 108 of them, or up to that, if you can get them all. There's a 6-person turn-based combat system. Characters are either defined by being short, medium, or long. Short characters need to be put in the front row, otherwise they can't actually attack. Medium row characters can be in either row, and long characters need to be in the back. I think you can actually put them in the front. It's just they're kind of vulnerable with their magic defense and defense, so they should be in the back row. I mean, these are like archers and characters like that with longer range weapons. If that wasn't kind of unique enough, there's actually unite attacks between certain characters. Like Pan and Gremiel have like a friendship unite attack, but certain characters who are related via like friendship or relationships or family sometimes have unite attacks. And then you can use magic via your runes. Yeah, there's runes in this game. They're kind of these like magic crystal type things. They get almost like soldered onto like your wrists. In Suikoden 1, you only get 1 rune per character. It's kind of lame, but actually, I mean, it works because the game's so short. So 1 rune per character in the first game. That does change with the later games. Now, I really love the combat, honestly. I think it's super fast. It's fun. It's fun to watch all the character animations. But one thing that a lot of people don't like is the fact that you can get through most of the battles just hitting auto, which means you hit auto and your characters just do their thing and you win the battle. I think the reason why the developers did this ultimately was they were worried that you would have to grind a lot with so many characters, and they want you to experiment. They want you to use characters, not be afraid to take them. And the game's set up in a way where you could take a level 10 character with you with your level 30 party, and they would be leveled up in no time, like 4, 5, 6, 7 battles. And this is intentional because, with 108 characters, especially with the game forcing you to use some of them at random times, they don't want you to have to spend 4 hours to level up Jeppo, because you have to use them for one section of the game when you never put them in your party before. So I think it works. The bosses still definitely require strategy, and it's still fun to play with your strategies with the stronger enemies as well. But just note that some people will kind of consider this mindless. I think the intentions are well, and I like it perfectly fine, but it's not going to be for everybody. One thing I did notice with battling though is the HD remaster doesn't give you like any tutorials at all. So I had a friend that was new to the series. For me, it was just like, yeah, I've done this before. I know exactly what to do. But with him, he was like, yeah, I didn't really understand that, like, the blacksmith would sharpen your weapons. I'm used to buying weapons in games. I didn't really notice that the runes were the magic. Obviously, armor works the same. You just buy it. And I didn't really know what the hell to do with those rune pieces that you can attach to your weapons via the blacksmith. So I do think that there should have been a tutorial here to help people kind of figure it out. Back in the day, that was just normal. It's like, yeah, you get tossed in the game, figure this shit out for yourself. But like a modern game, it's like the tutorial probably should have been there. It's not complicated. Once you get through the first 30 minutes to an hour, I think you'll be fine. But there might be a little bit of growing pains for that first hour. For newcomers, just be aware of that. Moving on, though, there are two other types of battles. You have major battles. Every Suikoden game has these, but in the first game, they're played like very kind of simplistic rocks, paper, scissors system, sword, magic, bow, and you can use some kind of like other skills to augment your combat, like your ninjas can try to figure out what the enemy's next move is going to be. And honestly, they're a fun deviation from the normal gameplay, and they're pretty easy overall, and they're not very long, but I do think they're fun. I mean, I think for new players, they might struggle with it more. I find them very easy at this point. And there's not many in this game, but there's also some one-on-one duels where one of your heroes will fight an opponent. There's a very major one in Suikoden 1 that I will not spoil. That anyone listening to this, please don't spoil in the comments. But there's only like 3 or 4 of them in this game, but it's also kind of a rocks, paper, scissors system, but it's different in that you need to listen to what your opponent says and guess what you think their attack's going to be and respond accordingly. Again, like they're not super deep, but they do add some variation to the gameplay. And I think that's a theme with Suikoden, really, is that you're never going to be bored because there's so many different random things you're doing in this game. And the difficulty is really in recruiting the characters, but there's different types of combat, you're exploring your HQ and seeing what new functions exist there as you recruit new characters. Like, there's just a lot of variation with these games, and I think it's part of the magic of what makes Suikoden so darn good to the people that really like it. Like, once you get it, I think you'll really appreciate all these kind of little systems and mini games and kind of extra battle types and stuff that you can play with. Now, onto the aesthetics a bit. All this stuff kind of blends in my brain because I've played them so many times. Like, man, it's just like, I think of a place, like your castle in Suikoden 1, you're going up there with your boat and your giant rock castle in the middle of the lake and the music that plays, and God, it just takes me back to my childhood. It's so damn pleasant to just think about. But what I would say more objectively is that Suikoden leans into a very Asian aesthetic overall. I mean, you got like temples and villages, you got like thatched roofing as you'd see maybe in like a traditional Asian village. You have hot springs, and just like a lot of very Asian-inspired aesthetics. For me, I don't know, as someone who spent 10 years in Asia between Korea and Taiwan, I really like this even more. And I really liked it because a lot of RPGs just go for that medieval European style, castles and knights and dragons and all that stuff. Whereas Suikoden kind of does overall, I'll go for more of an Asian style. That said, here's the caveat, there's a lot of different mythologies mixed in here. I mean, there's like unicorns, vampires, runes. It's really this giant fusion of ideas and cultures that coalesce just overall into a very Asian-inspired overall aesthetic. And the graphics fit in really nicely with this. The original Suikoden 1, like I said, it was a pretty simple-looking PS1 game, but because it was 2D, it still holds up pretty well. The remaster version does have improved graphics for the most part. I would say like 95% of the time I was really impressed with them. Occasionally, there's something a little bit jarring in juxtaposition. What I mean is, like, I remember walking through a cave earlier in the game, and I looked at the water, and I was like, that does not look like it belongs in this game. It looks like you grabbed that from, like, a DS game from 2008 and just, like, reused that asset and plopped it into Suikoden, and it looks really weird meshed in with the more, like, Suikoden traditional graphics. But for the most part, Suikoden 1 does definitely look better with the HD version, though if you're playing the original version, that still will look fine. It's just more simplistic. Then moving on to the music. I mean, the music's really eclectic. It's very standout. It doesn't sound like any other game. Like, you will definitely hear a song and be like, yeah, that's definitely Suikoden music. There's a lot of interesting instruments, some of which I honestly cannot even identify for you. A lot of it's kind of Asian inspired, but also you have like, really intense battle themes, really kind of sad, emotional music that plays, like it's disparate. I would say this is a good soundtrack. Like, it's not one of the best soundtracks ever made, but it's through and through a very good soundtrack. My only complaint with it really is that some of the villages in this game share the same music. So like in that beginning area where you got like Kaika and some of those villages that all look kind of the same, like same style of buildings, same kind of aesthetics. in the same music. It makes it really hard for me to remember which village is which. Like in my brain, I'm like, oh God, they all have the same looking buildings, the same music. Like what the heck character, like what city was he in? I totally forget. And then I've got to like, transport myself to 3 villages to figure out which one it is because they don't stand out in my brain. But that's a small complaint overall. Most of the music's very good here. And most of the cities are also pretty cool. But just a little bit small. I mean, that's a theme you're going to see with Suikoden 1 is the whole thing is just smaller in scale than the later games. And one thing I should note here, I kind of forgot about this, but yeah, we got some nice speed up options in the remasters with battles, and that really helps with the speed. The original games were not slow by any means, but it is nice to have that there. Belongs in another section, sorry, kind of blew over that one. Anyway, going on to character recruitment and castle building. So a huge component of the Suikoden formula is recruiting those 108 stars of destiny and seeing your castle grow. It's kind of this like Pokemon SMT vibe going on with recruiting all these characters, and honestly, it's where the biggest part of the challenge comes in. Now with Suikoden 1, my issue is there's no guide. Back in the day, there was no paper guide. In the game, there's no guide. There's no Richmond like in Suikoden 2 that can help you find these characters. So you're just on your own. Now, you have Suikosaurus, you have stuff like online now. Back in the day, I don't know how the heck I figured out how to recruit these freaking characters. I really have no idea. But, now you can just go online if you're kind of lost and figure out, like, oh yeah, that character, do this. Just be aware that there's a few that have like random arbitrary deadlines before you can recruit them. And so you can get screwed over. So it might not be a bad idea in the first game to have 2 save files going on, just so this doesn't screw you over if you're trying to get all 108. But that said, just following Suikosaurus, you'll definitely get all the 108 with no problem. But just note that yes, they're really fun to recruit for the most part, but there's a few that are just totally random and like it's cryptic as hell. And so yeah, I do feel like they really missed out on putting an in-game guide in this game on how to recruit these characters. But, it's not bad with the modern internet and just looking at Suikosaurus. For those that don't mind that immersion loss of kind of dipping back into the internet to look for that guide. And then, yeah, those characters you recruit lead to an ever-expanding castle. I mean, there's 4 different stages to your HQ. In the first game, you have a couple mini-games in there. Maybe most noteworthy is the dice game with Jasper Chinchanchurin, which you can use to, you can exploit this game to get max potch very easily. I feel like that's not much of a spoiler, and for you people coming into it, you'll appreciate that. Take advantage of that game to just get like tons of money. But that said, your castle outside of that in Suikoden 1 is pretty simplistic. Like it's not really that rewarding to find like the window sets or the sound sets. Like the castles are much more interesting in later games. I like the aesthetics of the castle in the first game. There's just not a ton to do in there. And another thing is you only have your actual 108 stars of destiny in the castle, whereas games like Suikoden 2, there's NPCs that you can see like constructing it and stuff that make it a lot more interesting. So cool castle in Suikoden 1, just simple. You're not going to spend as much time there as you will in any of the later Suikoden games. I mean, probably even 4, to be totally honest. And I don't want to say that, but that's probably true. So what are my impressions coming back to it now and then? Honestly, when I was younger, this was such a cornerstone RPG. I always kind of saw it as a prelude to the second game. I always wanted to get that save data, which plays a role in the second game. We'll talk about that in the next video. And I probably would have ranked this game like a 9 out of 10 back in the day just because it's so damn fun from start to finish. And I agree with that, but looking at it a bit more objectively as an adult coming back 20, 25 years later, I am like, probably like 8 out of 10 is a bit more realistic, I think. I do think the game is a bit too simplistic. Like I want the castle to have more. I want the story scenes to be a little more epic and, elongated. I want some of those characters to have just a bit more backstory and intrigue. But that said, I mean, this is the very first Suikoden game. It's only maybe like 13 to 20 hours, depending how fast you can get through it. And it wastes no time. I mean, there's no part of this game that I dread. There's no filler to it. There's no part that really sucks. It's just simple. That's all I can say. I mean, the dungeons are simplistic. You 1 rune slot per character. The castle is simplistic. The story's a bit stripped down. But all the key elements of Suikoden are here. It's a quick and fun adventure. And if you plan on playing Suikoden 2, 3, 4, and 5, or even at least 2, you should absolutely do not skip Suikoden 1. It is still a really good game and worth your time. And it will pay a lot of dividends when you move on to Suikoden 2. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. I can never recapture the magic of playing this as a kid, but I still love it. And I just want to know for you, what do you think of this game? And who's your favorite character in this game? I think for me, honestly, replaying it, I don't think I would have disagreed back in the day, but I think Victor really just stands out in the first game a lot. I mean, he has so many funny lines. He's such an intriguing, almost like uncle figure to Tyr. And I just love the kind of mix of being kind of a vagrant mixed with like, having his heart in the right place. And, his values are just great to me. He's a rough and tough guy. He's lovable. He doesn't care about shit like money. And I just really like that about him. So Victor for me in the first game. But that said, I mean, the character that really blew my mind in the last playthrough was Kasumi. She is a beast in the back row. Wow. Like she can use a strike rune every turn. Awesome to use her. Anyway, who was your favorite character in the original Suikoden? What are your overall thoughts of the game? Please like and subscribe if you liked the video at all. Just hit that subscribe button. It's not too hard. And I'll catch you next time, hopefully with a Suikoden 2 video. All right, game on.